tous, on est sur ARDENNCAFE avec Tom Humberstone qui est l'auteur du dernier justement Suzanne. Et toute l'interview va être en anglais, donc vous allez pouvoir entendre mon superbe accent anglais. Hello Tom.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, and you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Very well.
You enjoyed the festival?
Yeah, it's amazing. We've got nothing like this in the UK where music and comics are so involved at the same festival.
It's your first time?
Yes, yeah.
And it's a big festival, and you wrote the Suzanne. It's a comics book, and he talk about Suzanne Langlin. How did you make this?
Yeah, how did I come across the idea? It's strange. I've been a big fan of tennis for a long time. I enjoy watching it, and I've always enjoyed sort of finding out about the different stories that are involved in the players' lives and the history about it. I was reading a tennis history book, and there was a short paragraph about Suzanne Langlin in the 20s, how important she was to the sport and all of these achievements and create sort of amazing things about her life. And all I knew about her was the name because of the chords at Roland Garros. And I was surprised that I didn't know all of these parts of her life. Wimbledon moved from where it was to where it is now to accommodate the amount of people who wanted to see her. The dress she wore, sort of fashion, she changed fashion for the women in the 20th century and changed the way people dressed. So I started reading more books about her.
Okay.
But there aren't that many. There were like maybe one or two books that are solely about her. There were certainly no graphic novels or BD, and I thought it was a shame that she wasn't as well known as Federer or Serena Williams, or she seemed like such an important figure in the history of sports.
Yes.
And there were so many parts of her life that I thought were useful to be able to talk about how things are for us now, and the change in way that sports interfaces with culture and politics and fashion and art. So yeah, that's sort of what started it.
Yeah, we talk about a lot of sportmen, but women in sport, we don't talk a lot of. You would like to talk about a woman or sport or both?
Oh yeah, I guess it's a little bit of both. I've always enjoyed watching women's tennis, and I think tennis is one of those sports where it isn't entirely equal, but like women and men are as equal, as more equal in tennis than in other sports.
Yes.
It's getting better with football, I think, and certain other sports, but
in basketball.
So, yeah. And I know like Serena Williams is like often was one of the only women in the kind of top 10 paid athletes.
Yes.
List. So like I think there are clearly like a lot of really interesting women in tennis who have incredible stories. I think Amelie Mauresmo in particular, and Hingis I think is interesting. There's Navratilova. There's lots of interesting stories there. I think that was always part of it. I think it was an interesting way to talk about, because during the 1920s you can use it to talk about the beginnings of women's suffrage and women getting the vote. You can talk about the relationship between how the different moments of feminism in different countries, and how like Suzanne maybe got to see what feminism looked like in America and in Britain as opposed to in France.
Yes.
But yeah, I think what's wonderful about sport
Yes.
is there's so much narrative already invested. You know, there's so much. There's already so many stories involved in the sport, and it's just about drawing out where you want to use that in order to talk about wider things. It's always very difficult when you're talking about someone's life as well, that you have so many, like, where do you stop, you know, and what, you can't fit an entire person's life into 200 pages, but you're trying to find exactly what brought you to her story and what interested me about her, and sort of trying to sort of then structure it around those things. If that makes sense.
You just have to work on the collection. In French, ils ont changé le monde. Einstein, Nancy, Luther King, Marie Curie. How did you work on this?
Yes, so that was a illustrated a book about Einstein.
Yes.
That was written by someone else, and when it was translated in France, I did the covers for the other ones, Marie Curie. That was a few years ago. That was a sort of a work for hire, you know, like.
Yes.
But I really enjoyed it. It was probably my first full-length graphic novel. I've done lots of smaller books, but that was that was my first sort of long-form project, drawing a long-form project.
Yes. Do you have a draw formation?
Sorry?
Do you have a draw formation?
A draw formation? A setup?
Yes.
So I used to draw with brush and brush and ink, and then color on the computer. I've slowly started transitioning to digital, drawing on a Cintiq or my iPad, and just drawing straight in into the computer. When it comes to like working on a long form project of 200 pages or so, I find it's useful to be able to edit on the go and move things around. It's a little bit easier to sort of be iterative with the process, change things. I feel once you've committed to ink, it's quite difficult to change things, and I like being able to work the page and move things, you know, to make things smaller and larger, and you know, play around.
Okay. You are published in French. Where do
my first book in French.
In French, and where? How do you meet your
publisher?
Your publishing.
So Ankama. So my publisher in the UK is Avery Hill. They're a small publisher in South London, and they take their catalogue to Angoulême and meet other publishers and show the books, and that was where Ankama saw Suzanne.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a great. Do you would like to go in Angoulême for present?
So my first time I went this year.
Yes.
In January. It was my first time seeing it. It's amazing. It's an incredible experience. We've got nothing like it in the UK in terms of an entire city or town sort of taken over by comics. It's obviously it's getting a lot better, but comics aren't taken quite as seriously and as well respected as they are in France. So it's just nice to see people, treat you like an artist and take your work seriously. Yeah.
Do you have an advice for a new person to start in this business?
Yeah. I guess it's different here in France than it would be in the UK. In the UK, my advice would often be, if you want to make a comic, make a comic. There's nothing to stop you drawing a very short comic, publishing it online, or making a small self-published pamphlet, a zine, and taking it to a small comic fair. We have a lot of those in the UK, very small 30-table sort of zine fairs, and small press, we call it small press comics festivals. And I think the barrier to entry is very small. You can publish a comic very quickly, and once you're there, you can start seeing what people respond to. You meet other people who are the same age, or doing the same work, or interested in the same things. And I think it's really important to meet peers, people who are interested in the same type of story as you. And I think, to an extent, I think everyone has 100 or 200 bad comics pages inside them, and I think you just need to draw those before you can start drawing the good ones. So I think it's a practice. Draw every day, read other things, consume other art that is not comics, read books, watch movies, and I really like listening to podcasts with screenwriters and writers talk about their process, people who don't make comics, because I find that really interesting to find out how other people like to tell stories and create art. I definitely think getting influences outside of comics is important as well.
Okay. Thanks you for your interview.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Have a nice day.
Likewise.